Hey everyone, this is video 9 in our Strong Inside and Out series. And as I mentioned in the previous video, this is kind of like part 2. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about weightlifting. And no, it wasn't a typo or a misspell. It is titled exactly how I wanted it to be, which is W-A-I-T. Okay, when we're talking about weightlifting, I didn't actually mean lifting weights. I love to take the the physical and think of it metaphorically. God shares that same love. He speaks to us in metaphors constantly, and we can look at the parables of Jesus in the Bible and see that he's doing that there. And so that's kind of what this whole series has been about. And so if you would just join me in just thinking metaphorically for a little bit about weightlifting, okay? So yes, we're talking about patience. I know nobody wants to talk about patience. In fact, I think that when we talk about how love is patient and love is kind, I always consider in my mind, there's another word that the Bible often uses for patience, and that's long-suffering. And I think that the word long-suffering actually is a much better definition of patience than what we think patience is, right? We want to just be patient long enough to get home from work through traffic, or patient long enough to get out of the grocery store line, okay? But actual patience, the kind of patience that God is working in us, actually is better described with the word long-suffering, in my opinion, okay? So that's just a side note. That actually isn't even in my notes, so that's a plus for all of us. But have you ever been in one of those situations where you're waiting for something so long, you've been waiting and waiting and waiting, asking God for it, asking, seeking, begging, knocking, right? And you come to that point where you're like, you know what, Lord, your word says that when I wait on you, right? Isaiah 40:31, I'm supposed to be strengthened. And I know you're trying to make me stronger through this. I know you're trying to make me more patient, but I have to be honest with you, God, I really feel weaker and less patient than I've ever been, right? Have you ever been to those places, okay? If you have, this video is for you. And honestly, I've been to those places. In fact, just recently I've been to those places, just a couple months ago, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself in my notes, but just a couple months ago, even like a month ago, I passed through a time where I was hurting so bad over a situation and how long it's taken in the process, and I was telling God these same exact things that I just said. And anytime I would talk with some very wonderful friends of mine, the kind of friends that you really talk about, these really in-depth things in your life that you're going through, I couldn't even talk about the situation without tears welling up in my eyes. That's how tender that muscle was, right, so to speak. And so we're going to jump into that more in just a little bit. And so, it's just like working out, okay? And so God actually was speaking this to me for a friend of mine just a couple days ago. And so it's fun to see that he's added this to this series, and what he's done, that he touched that person's life, and he even spoke to me through it, because like I said, just a month ago, I was asking God these questions. Lord, I feel weaker and less patient than ever, so I don't think what you're doing is actually working, so maybe try a new method, right? So, but it's just like working out. If you've ever worked out, if you've ever, challenged yourself to that next level of weightlifting, right? Or it doesn't even have to be weightlifting, right? Or just something that's really outside of your comfort zone. Like you've gotten really good at lifting 20 pounds, but you challenge yourself to lift 35 and do it 15 reps, right? Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up sore. You're going to have muscles. You're going to realize that you have muscles in places you didn't know you had, right? And so, and so that's kind of that same experience we experience spiritually as well. And so, maybe you even experienced that, you doing things you've done your whole life are challenging, and you don't even want to think about that muscle because it hurts so bad, right? Like just a couple days ago, I did a leg day at the gym in a boot camp class, and for 2 days, it was hard to even like sit down, to squat, to lean over for anything, you know. And these are things that I've been doing my whole life, and I'm feeling, gosh, I feel weaker than I did when I started, you know. And so it's kind of that reminder that, well, if we can walk through the process physically and enjoy the process while we're working out and realizing, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I might be sore today. It might hurt to even, you know, touch that muscle physically because it's just so tender, right? We used it, we challenged it to the next level. And so it might hurt to even just touch it or to do basic things we've been doing our whole life, right? But that soreness is going to go away. And so the same way spiritually, that season is going to go away. And what's going to happen is, you know, where that soreness actually comes from in working out. It's interesting. I didn't know this before, but I had to look it up and research. Is when you have that time under tension, or even when you're bursting, like you do something really quick, really heavy, you're tearing these you're making these microscopic tears in your muscle fibers, right? And so it's in that tearing and the rebuilding that muscle growth happens, okay? And so it's a very normal process, that soreness. And there's different things you can take, you know, and different methods you can use to help, you know, decrease the amount of soreness you have, but you're still gonna experience some muscle soreness, okay? And muscle soreness means muscle growth, okay? And so it's the same way spiritually. When we're going through those times when we're like, you know what, that spot of my life right now is tender. I can't even talk to someone about that part of my life right now because, you know, it hurts really bad and the tears well up in my eyes, or I can't even think about that part of my life because I start crying, you know. And so that is an example of muscle soreness in the spiritual realm, okay? And that's God working, God is building. And so those times are natural. Those times it's normal to hurt. It's normal to experience those times when we're like, you know what, I feel weaker than I did when I started, Lord. I feel worse than I did. I feel less patient than I did, but I can come to you with experience and say that, you know, after that season passes, and yes, in the spiritual realm, the soreness may last for a little longer, right, than the physical realm. When we get sore physically, it might last for 1 or 2 days, you know, at the most. But sometimes we pass through spiritual soreness in seasons where, you know, we've waited for a long time, and that muscle has just been under so much tension, right, and it's tearing, and so it's so sore, and it takes a little longer. And I also noticed that, just like I've talked about in seasons of rest in another video in this series, that God puts us in those God ordained, whether small or long seasons of rest, right along with those times of soreness, okay? And the reason is that your muscles can repair, that spiritually you can rest. And as you rest, you start to grow stronger, spiritually or physically. Both are the same, both are true, right? And so it's like growing pains. Our kids, I can always tell when my kids are growing, right? They start to get grumpy and irritable. And so they got growing pains. They got this stuff that's growing and changing inside of them, right? And rebuilding itself. And they need rest, right? And usually during those growth spurts, you're like, you know what? I can see that you need a little more rest, okay? So it's the same way with God towards us. So we've been looking at the verse in James, right? In the last video, we talked about the first two verses there. So it's James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. But the part that I didn't read in there is actually my favorite part. And it goes along with what we're talking about here. And it says, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And so patience, whether we like to admit it or not, is actually a muscle that God is trying to build within us, right? And you know what? Eternity is a long time. And I feel like our little fleshly hearts and minds just can't even fathom eternity, right? We can't even fathom, 10, 15 minutes in the grocery store line, okay? How can we fathom and understand and comprehend eternity, right? And I think a lot of the times as Christians, one of the things that irritates us the most, and even in my own life, And I say this out of my own, judging and my own heart and experiences. A lot of the things that frustrate me the most about God is that he seems like he's not in a hurry, and I want him to be in a hurry sometimes. And in return, God wants us to build our patience muscle, our endurance muscle, and to let patience have its perfect work within us so that we can be complete, lacking nothing, right? Just like in the physical realm when we're working out, we let that soreness take place. We still wake up and we challenge ourselves physically to the next level. We know soreness is going to come, right? But we also know that that soreness means change is coming, transformation is coming. And so he's asking us to do the same in the spiritual realm, to know this just means that change is coming. This just means that transformation is coming. This means I'm getting stronger, okay? And to accept that. And so God bless you guys. I don't know if there's any more videos coming for this series. I only listen to what the Lord says. If he prompts me to make a video, I do. But either way, I look forward to growing stronger inside and out with you.